Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Anda bersama saya Nursyazwani Sham dalam Niaga Awani. Niaga Awani hari ini kita nak memberi fokus kepada Belanjawan 2026 yang bakal dibentangkan dalam suasana ekonomi yang mencabar namun pastinya penuh harapan. Dengan saiz hutang kerajaan persekutuan mencecah 1.3 trilion ringgit setakat akhir Jun 2025 dan sasaran defisit fiskal di bawah 3% menjelang 2030 seperti digariskan dalam rancangan Malaysia ke-13. Bajet kali ini dijangka menjadi penentu hala 7 fiskal negara. Tambahan pula tahun 2026 menandakan tahun pertama pelaksanaan RMK-13 menjadikan bajet ini sebagai platform penting untuk merangka semula strategi pembangunan dan pertumbuhan ekonomi negara. Dan bersama kami hari ini pakar ekonomi MBSB Research Abdul Muiz Nur Halim untuk mengupas jangkaan beliau terhadap saiz peruntukan, fokus utama bajet, cabaran fiskal serta potensi perubahan dalam sistem percukaian negara. Muiz, pada awal ini mungkin Muiz boleh kongsikan sedikitlah apa sebenarnya jangkaan berkenaan dengan jumlah saiz peruntukan untuk bajet ataupun Belanjawan 2026 yang akan dibentangkan pada 10 Oktober nanti, dan bagaimana sebenarnya Muiz melihat jumlah perbelanjaan tersebut mampu memberi sokongan kepada pertumbuhan ekonomi?
Okey, kalau kita sebut dari segi saiz, saya menjangka mungkin ianya tidak jauh berbeza dari segi nilai sebanyak 420 bilion. Mungkin ia akan meningkat sikit kepada 440 bilion. Kerana kalau kita lihat dari segi pertumbuhan perbelanjaan kerajaan dari segi nominalnya biasanya meningkat sekitar 4 ke 5%. Dan kalau kita ambil kira juga sasaran pertumbuhan yang diletakkan dalam rancangan Malaysia ke-13, saya pasti kerajaan mahu memastikan peranan perbelanjaan kerajaan ini masih akan terus mengembang bagi menyokong pertumbuhan ekonomi sebanyak 5.5% yang disesuaikan bagi tempoh 5 tahun akan datang. Walaupun kami di MBSB Research sebenarnya menjangka pertumbuhan mungkin akan sedikit lebih sederhana, sekitar 4 ke 4.5%, tapi saya percaya bajet ini adalah satu dokumen penting yang mana menunjukkan komitmen kerajaan untuk menyokong pertumbuhan ekonomi negara. Merujuk kepada sasaran perbelanjaan pembangunan juga, saya menjangka mungkin ia akan dikekalkan sekitar 86 ke 90 bilion bagi memastikan tumpuan dan juga fokus kepada pembangunan melibatkan infrastruktur dan juga pembinaan jalan raya lebih baik. Dan juga melihat kepada operasi kerajaan, saya menjangka kenaikan gaji pejabat awam dan juga bayaran khidmat hutang yang lebih tinggi akan menjadi dua fokus ataupun beban utama kepada operasi perbelanjaan kerajaan.
Ya, dan berdasarkan mungkin jumlah perbelanjaan tersebut dan juga antara fokus-fokus utama yang telah pun Muiz jelaskan tadi, bagi tahun 2026 ia akan menjadi tahun pertama untuk pelaksanaan rancangan Malaysia ke-13 RMK-13 itu. Apa penekanan utama sebenarnya yang perlu diberikan pengkhususan untuk Belanjawan 2026 ini?
Kalau kita lihat kepada kenyataan pra-bajet yang dikeluarkan oleh Kementerian Kewangan, ada 3 fokus utama yang ini biasanya kita akan lihat selari dengan matlamat yang cuba dicapai dalam kerangka ekonomi madani. Pertamanya ialah meningkatkan penyampaian perkhidmatan awam. Ini melibatkan penggunaan teknologi dan juga perkhidmatan berasaskan digital bagi memastikan kelancaran perkhidmatan awam. Dan keduanya kita dapati kerajaan sentiasa menekankan tentang fokus untuk mengembangkan ekonomi, iaitu dengan perasaan biasa kita dengar menaikkan siling. Jadi kita akan lihat lebih banyak galakan-galakan dari segi pelaburan untuk sektor-sektor yang membawa peluang pendapatan tinggi dan juga insentif bagi menggalakkan penggunaan digital, AI, otomasi dan juga peralihan tenaga seperti mana yang digariskan dalam NETA, dan juga galakan pembangunan industri seperti yang dimaktubkan dalam NIMP 2030 dan juga strategi semikonduktor kerajaan, strategi semikonduktor kebangsaan. Dan bagi galakan lain juga saya menjangka akan ada bantuan kepada pembangunan PMKS dan juga galakan pertumbuhan ekonomi halal. Kita dapati ini antara kekuatan Malaysia kerana kita melihat Malaysia berjaya meletakkan menjadi hub penting kepada pusat kewangan Islam global. Dan juga saya menyangka akan ada sokongan bagi sektor pelancongan kerana tahun depan adalah tahun melawat Malaysia dan pastinya akan ada insentif untuk menggalakkan lebih ramai kehadiran pelancong. Dan dari segi fokus ketiga pula ialah melibat kepada menaikkan ataupun menambah baik kehidupan rakyat, dan saya percaya akan ada sokongan-sokongan dari segi menggalakkan pendidikan dan juga TVET dan juga memberi insentif kepada pembeli rumah pertama, yang mana ini bagi khususnya menggalakkan milikan rumah bagi golongan muda. Dan selain itu, saya menjangka mungkin akan sumbangan tunai rahmah dan juga SARA juga akan diteruskan, kerana ini adalah antara usaha untuk menyokong rakyat menghadapi tekanan daripada segi kenaikan kos hidup. Selain daripada kenaikan gaji pejabat awam juga, saya menjangka kerajaan akan menekankan insentif untuk meningkatkan gaji secara umumnya, kerana ini adalah punca utama untuk memperbaiki kehidupan rakyat selain untuk jangka masa panjang dalam kita menghadapi tekanan daripada negara menua. Saya percaya akan ada lebih banyak penekanan untuk mengukuhkan lagi jaringan keselamatan sosial ataupun social safety net, kerana kita bimbang perlunya lebih banyak sokongan untuk kita menghadapi kehidupan sebab tua nanti.
Ya, itu kalau kita bercakap berkenaan dengan tumpuan ataupun pengkhususan yang diberikan pada Belanjawan nanti akan dibentangkan pada 10 Oktober nanti. Cuma mungkin dari segi defisit fiskal pula, adakah Muiz berpendapat bahawa saiz defisit itu mampu dikurangkan kerajaan untuk tahun hadapan berdasarkan pemerhatian oleh mungkin MBSB sendiri? Apakah cabaran utama yang perlu ditangani terutamanya untuk memastikan sasaran defisit fiskal itu di bawah 3% daripada KDNK dapat dicapai pada tahun 2030 seperti yang disasarkan dalam RMK 13 itu?
Kalau dari segi jumlah keseluruhan defisit tu, saya menjangka mungkin akan kekal sekitar 80 ke 85 bilion. Dan berdasarkan kiraan saya, paras defisit fiskal ini mampu diturunkan ke sekitar 3.6% tahun hadapan berbanding jangkaan 3.8% yang cuba dicapai oleh kerajaan pada tahun ini. Satu sudut, bila kita lihat terdapat lebihan kerana kita tidak menggunakan peruntukan subsidi yang sepenuhnya disebabkan harga minyak dunia adalah lebih rendah berbanding paras yang kita lihat pada tahun lalu. Jadi ini membenarkan kerajaan untuk memberi pembiayaan atau membiayai sokongan kepada pembelanjaan tambahan bagi SARA dan juga potongan harga minyak bersubsidi RON 95 sebanyak 6 sen. Dan tapi bila kita lihat dari segi penekanan yang paling lebih penting pada saya ialah mencari ruang dan peluang bagaimana pendapatan fiskal dapat dipertingkatkan. Contohnya mencari aset-aset yang mungkin dapat menjana pulangan pendapatan lebih tinggi kepada kerajaan. Selain itu, mungkin kita dapat cuba gerakkan lebih banyak usaha-usaha kebajikan dan peranan NGO kerana ini juga dapat mengurangkan beban kepada kewangan kerajaan. Malah saya rasa mungkin kerajaan juga boleh bekerjasama dengan kerajaan negeri untuk memastikan pembangunan adalah selari dengan permintaan ataupun wishlist daripada negeri-negeri masing-masing, termasuk juga kemungkinan untuk berkolaborasi mencari ruang dan peluang bagaimana sebahagian daripada tanggungan kos pembangunan mampu juga untuk disokong oleh dana zakat yang dikutip oleh Pusat Zakat maupun Majlis Agama Islam Negeri.
Ya, dan kita sebut berkenaan dengan sumber pendapatan kerajaan itu pastinya tak dapat nak larilah daripada perubahan untuk melibatkan pencukaian ini. Adakah Muiz menjangkakan akan ada mungkin cukai-cukai baru yang akan diperkenalkan dalam Belanjawan 2026 nanti?
Kalau melihat kepada sistem cukai secara umum, saya tidak menjangka ada perubahan besar. Kerana pada tahun ini kita dapati SST telah dikembangkan, melibatkan kepada barangan-barangan yang lebih besar. Dan saya menjangka mungkin kalau kita lihat pun para peniaga sendiri contohnya meminta sedikit kelonggaran dari segi contohnya tekanan SST ke atas kontrak sewaan bagi peniaga komersial. Mungkin mereka meminta kerajaan untuk melonggarkan sedikit kerana tekanan yang mungkin diberikan kepada kos operasi mereka. Namun kalau kita sebut dari segi cukai-cukai baru, apa yang telah diumumkan sebelum ini, kemungkinan kerajaan akan mula mengutip cukai karbon khususnya bagi sektor seperti besi, keluli dan juga tenaga yang merupakan penyumbang besar kepada pelepasan gas hijau. Malah kalau kita lihat dari segi dalam RMK 13 juga ada dinyatakan kemungkinan cukai akan terus dikembangkan untuk menggalakkan kehidupan yang lebih sihat. Mungkin kita dapati ada kemungkinan berlakunya perubahan ke atas cukai kepada rokok untuk mengelakkan mengurangkan ketagihan kepada merokok. Dan kalau kita lihat, ada juga cadangan untuk mungkin mengenakan cukai ke atas saham yang didagangkan. Tapi saya rasa ini bukan masa yang sesuai kerana ini boleh menjejaskan keyakinan pelabur. Dan dari segi mungkin kalau yang lebih kita perlu risaukan sikit ialah cukai yang mungkin lebih tinggi bagi kepada golongan berpendapatan tinggi, kerana ada yang menyatakan kerajaan tidak mengeluarkan golongan berpendapatan tinggi daripada menikmati subsidi petrol Ron 95, jadi ada kemungkinan mereka mungkin akan dikenakan bayaran cukai lebih tinggi. Cuma saya mengharapkan ianya dapat diperhalusi supaya tidak ada kesan negatif pada pertumbuhan perbelanjaan domestik yang khususnya menjadi pemacu utama pertumbuhan ekonomi negara setakat ini.
Ya, pastinya banyak yang akan diberikan pengkhususan pada belanjawan nanti, tapi kita tak dapat nafikan setiap kali belanjawan pastinya akan ada satu isu iaitu berkaitan dengan isu hutang kerajaan yang akan terus menjadi tumpuan. Bagaimana sebenarnya Muiz meneliti kejayaan kerajaan untuk mengekang saiz hutang negara daripada terus meningkat setelah mencecah 1.3 trilion ringgit setakat akhir Jun tahun ini?
Pertama sekali kalau kita lihat dari segi kenaikan defisit ataupun kenaikan hutang ini adalah bertujuan untuk membiayai perbelanjaan pembangunan. Jadi ianya perlu dikawal dengan kita mengurangkan kebergantungan kepada kerajaan untuk membiayai projek-projek pembangunan. Namun ini yang kita lihat dalam apa yang dinyatakan oleh kerajaan dalam RMK 13, kerana kita ingin melihat lebih banyak bebanan pelaburan khususnya ditanggung oleh sektor swasta dan juga agensi-agensi kerajaan yang lain. Tapi secara umum kalau kita lihat disiplin pengurusan fiskal saya dapati adalah lebih baik, kerana kita lihat jumlah ataupun saiz defisit fiskal telah berjaya diturunkan daripada 64% pada 2021 kepada sekitar 40% daripada KDNK pada tahun lalu, dan ini memberi ruang yang lebih baik kepada kerajaan untuk bersedia menghadapi sebarang kemungkinan sekiranya berlaku krisis. Dan apa yang lebih penting pada saya, perlu lebih banyak usaha untuk memastikan bagaimana hutang ini dapat dikurangkan. Khususnya kalau kita dapati dari segi nilai, memang dari segi naratifnya ia terus meningkat, dan saya percaya apa yang kerajaan cuba buat ialah untuk memperlahankan peningkatan pinjaman, dan ini perlu diberikan naratif yang lebih jelas kerana keyakinan pelabur juga bergantung kepada kejayaan kerajaan untuk memastikan disiplin fiskal ini terus dapat ditambah baik, dan pada masa sama kebergantungan hutang, pertumbuhan yang berasaskan kebergantungan hutang juga akan dapat dikurangkan.
Baik, terima kasih kita ucapkan kepada Abdul Muiz Muhalim, pakar ekonomi dari MBSB Research dalam kita bercakap berkenaan dengan tumpuan untuk belanjawan 2026. Nanti pasti banyak lagi yang akan kita bincangkan dari semasa ke semasa, dan antara perkara yang menjadi tumpuan juga adalah penurunan harga barang yang terus menjadi aspirasi utama rakyat terhadap kerajaan menerusi Belanjawan 2026 yang akan dibentangkan pada 10 Oktober depan. Pandangan itu disuarakan 46.12% daripada keseluruhan 683 responden yang menyertai tinjauan dalam talian suara anda, Suara Malaysia sehingga 6 petang semalam. Sementara itu, tinjauan oleh Astro AWANI juga mendapati 23.28% responden menyifatkan gaji dan peluang kerja adalah bantuan rakyat yang diperlukan segera. Pada masa sama, 18.01% responden memilih bantuan tunai sebagai keutamaan, manakala 12.59% responden mengharapkan rumah mampu milik sebagai bantuan rakyat yang perlu disegerakan. Astro AWANI membuka ruang kepada rakyat Malaysia untuk bersuara dan berkongsi pandangan menjelang pembentangan Belanjawan 2026. Menerusi inisiatif tersebut, orang ramai terbuka untuk menyertai kuis khas yang mengandungi soalan penting berkaitan isu kos sara hidup, subsidi, pekerjaan, pendidikan, kesihatan, cukai serta hala tuju ekonomi negara. Soalan baru akan dikemas kini setiap 2 hari sehinggalah menjelang sehari sebelum Belanjawan 2026 yang akan dibentangkan Perdana Menteri merangkap Menteri Kewangan Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim pada 10 Oktober nanti.
Menjelang Belanjawan 2026, Astro AWANI membuka ruang kepada rakyat Malaysia untuk bersuara dan berkongsi pandangan. Soalan hari ini adalah, patutkah GST diperkenalkan semula? 4 pilihan jawapan diberikan, imbas kod QR yang tertera untuk menjawab. Suara anda penting dalam membentuk masa depan Malaysia. Sertai sekarang dan jadilah sebahagian daripada wacana nasional. Suara anda, Suara Malaysia.
Baik, Amerika Syarikat tidak menolak kemungkinan untuk mengenakan satu lagi pusingan tarif ke atas negara-negara anggota ASEAN sekiranya rundingan perdagangan gagal mencapai hasil yang menguntungkan Washington. Wakil Perdagangan Amerika Syarikat Jameson Greer berkata ketika ini pihaknya sedang memberi tumpuan kepada usaha merundingkan perjanjian perdagangan dengan ekonomi ASEAN.
Namun katanya Amerika kini sudah melakukan sesi rundingan bersama negara anggota ASEAN dan fokus kepada halangan bukan tarif. Greer menegaskan bahawa tarif masih kekal sebagai satu kemungkinan sekiranya rundingan gagal. Beliau berkata demikian kepada media di luar mesyuarat Menteri Ekonomi ASEAN ke-57 AEM dan mesyuarat berkaitan di Kuala Lumpur. Ketika ditanya sama ada ekspor semikonduktor dari negara ASEAN selamat daripada dikenakan tarif, Greer menjelaskan bahawa rantaian bekalan semikonduktor global adalah sangat kompleks. Ujar beliau, ia juga penting untuk keselamatan negara bagi kedua-dua pihak, Amerika Syarikat dan negara ASEAN. Beliau akui negara ASEAN kekal sebagai sumber penting bagi semikonduktor. Bulan lalu, Amerika telah mengenakan tarif sebanyak 19% ke atas Malaysia, Kemboja, Filipina, Thailand dan Indonesia. Vietnam dikenakan kadar sedikit lebih tinggi iaitu 20%, manakala Brunei berdepan tarif sebanyak 25%. Singapura sebagai rakan dagang utama Amerika kekal dengan kadar tarif terendah dalam kalangan negara ASEAN iaitu 10%, tidak berubah sejak pelaksanaan awal. Sebaliknya, Laos dan Myanmar merupakan negara yang paling terjejas dengan kadar tarif mencecah 40%.
Perundingan Menteri-Menteri Ekonomi ASEAN, hubungan ekonomi lebih rapat CER ke-30 menggesa kalangan negara masih belum meratifikasikan perjanjian kawasan perdagangan bebas ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand yang dipertingkatkan supaya berbuat demikian dengan segera. Perundingan tersebut menyatakan tindakan segera itu akan membolehkan manfaat daripada perjanjian yang dipertingkatkan tersebut direalisasikan sepenuhnya untuk perniagaan dan rakyat di seluruh rantau ini.
Protokol kedua untuk meminda perjanjian itu mula buka kuasa secara rasmi pada 21 April 2025, menandakan satu langkah penting dalam memperkukuh hubungan perdagangan dan ekonomi antara negara anggota ASEAN, Australia dan New Zealand.
To our esteemed partners from Australia and New Zealand, we deeply value the enduring friendship and cooperation that we have built over decades, rooted in mutual respect and a shared vision for a prosperous region. This year holds significance, special significance, as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of ASEAN's dialogue relations with New Zealand and the 51st anniversary with Australia. These milestones serve as a testament to the depth of our partnership and the trust cultivated over years of constructive engagement. Australia and New Zealand are among ASEAN's most important economic partners, and in terms of investments as well as trade. And today's agenda will allow us to listen to the Australian ASEAN Chamber of Commerce and the ASEAN New Zealand Business Council insights and recommendations. Reflect on the implementation of the second protocol to amend the AANZFTA or AANZFTA, review ongoing cooperation under the implementation support program, and consider the communication package for 2025. We will also discuss the outcomes of the ASEAN-CER Integration Partnership Forum on digital economy integration, exchange views on regional and global economic developments, and explore the future direction of ASEAN-CER cooperation, particularly in relation to our shared interest in WTO reform. Colleagues, at the time of shifting global dynamics, this partnership demonstrates ASEAN's commitment to promoting openness, resilience, and inclusivity within our regional architecture. I'm confident that our deliberations today will further strengthen the ASEAN-CER partnership, advancing not only trade and investment, but also innovation, sustainability, and people-centered growth. With this spirit of cooperation in mind, I look forward to our productive discussions. It is now my honor to invite His Excellency Don Farrell to deliver his opening remark, followed by His Excellency Todd McLeay.
Perundingan AEM-CER ke-30 dipengerusikan bersama Menteri Pelaburan, Perdagangan dan Industri Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Abdul Aziz, Menteri Perdagangan dan Pelancongan Australia Don Farrell serta Menteri Perdagangan dan Pelaburan New Zealand Todd McLeay. Dalam satu kenyataan bersama, komitmen Australia dan New Zealand untuk meningkatkan sumbangan dana mereka kepada program perdagangan serantau untuk pembangunan RT4D dengan tambahan $4.6 juta akan membantu mengatasi dan bertindak balas kepada cabaran dalam persekitaran perdagangan global.
Malaysia berharap perjanjian rangka kerja ekonomi digital ASEAN dapat dimeterai dalam masa terdekat sekaligus memberi manfaat kepada pasaran digital serantau secara lebih meluas. Menteri Digital Gobind Singh Dio berkata, sekiranya potensi ini diperluas, ia dapat memanfaatkan hampir 700 juta warga ASEAN dengan anggaran keuntungan mencecah $2 trilion Amerika menjelang 2030. Beliau berkata demikian semasa ditemui media ketika menghadiri ASEAN-EU Business Summit di Ibu Negara pada Khamis.
Sekiranya kita ada perjanjian yang membolehkan transaksi rentas sempadan dilaksanakan seperti mana dicadangkan dalam DIFA, potensi perniagaan yang kita dapat lihat bergerak ke tahun 2030 adalah dalam lingkungan sebanyak $2 trilion Amerika Syarikat. Itulah sangat besar. Berbanding dengan sekiranya kita tidak ada dokumen yang membolehkan transaksi ini, di mana potensi itu setengah, iaitu hanya setakat $1 trilion US dollar Amerika. Jadi dalam keadaan tersebut, kalau kita tidak bergerak untuk memastikan perjanjian ini dimeteraikan, maka potensi yang kita mungkin kehilangan potensi untuk mendapat manfaat sepenuhnya, iaitu kekurangan lebih kurang $1 trilion US dollar di dalam 5 tahun yang akan datang.
Kesatuan Eropah EU berpendapat ASEAN merupakan peluang ekonomi terbaik dipacu oleh keyakinan perniagaan yang kukuh dan potensi ekonomi yang semakin berkembang. Pesuruhjaya Eropah bagi Perdagangan dan Keselamatan Ekonomi, Hubungan Anterinstitusi dan Ketelusan Maros Sefcovic berkata, pandangan itu mengesahkan komitmen EU untuk mengukuhkan hubungan perdagangan dan pelaburan dengan ASEAN sekaligus menekankan kepentingan strategik blok berkenaan di rantau ini.
For us, the region of ASEAN is of growing importance. We would like to get it to the strategic level. We see ASEAN as a very dynamic, vibrant region, a huge market of 660 million. And after my meetings with the business community and business council, which we had yesterday and this morning, I'm absolutely convinced that not only us on political level, but especially the businesses see a huge opportunity, and they've been giving to me, and I understand to my South Asian political counterparts, a very strong message of how important it is to deepen our collaboration and how we can open the doors further for investment and job creation if we conclude our free trade agreements.
Sefcovic turut menekankan keperluan untuk memudahkan prosedur kastam dan menambah baik kemudahan menjalankan perniagaan antara kedua-dua rantau, memandangkan EU melihat ASEAN bukan sahaja sebagai rakam politik tetapi juga sebagai destinasi ekonomi yang menarik untuk pelaburan-pelaburan baru. Mengenai perjanjian perdagangan bebas FTA, beliau berkata walaupun EU telah memuktamadkan perjanjian dengan Singapura, Vietnam dan yang terbaru Indonesia, rundingan sedang giat dijalankan dengan Malaysia, Thailand dan Filipina.
Advancing very well in our free trade negotiations with Thailand, with the Philippines, but also with Malaysia. We had very important meetings here on the top political level, but also, as I was referring to, with the business community. And of course, I was just suggesting to my counterparts that the best way to celebrate and mark 50th anniversary of dialogue between ASEAN and the European Union would be if all these free trade agreements would be concluded by then.
Sementara itu, dalam kenyataan bersama hari ini, ia berkata kedua-dua pihak berazam untuk bekerjasama menghasilkan keputusan yang bermakna pada persidangan Menteri-Menteri MC Pertubuhan Perdagangan Dunia WTO ke-14 yang dijadualkan berlangsung pada Mac 2026 di Cameron.
Timbalan Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Fadillah Yusof berharap agar ASEAN dan Kesatuan Eropah EU dapat bekerjasama lebih erat dalam menjayakan ASEAN Power Grid atau APG. Menurut Fadillah, kerjasama tersebut dijalankan melalui bengkel khas dengan tujuan menimba pengalaman daripada EU agar menjadi jalan pintas bagi negara ASEAN melaksanakan APG. Beliau yang juga Menteri Peralihan Tenaga dan Transformasi Air berkata demikian semasa ditemui media selepas menghadiri ASEAN-EU Business Summit di Kuala Lumpur.
This is important for Malaysia because EU are already connected. So there's already a cross-border exchange of energies within the EU. This is important so that we can learn from them what they have done, what are the problems that they have faced, and how do they address it. So with that, there'll be shortcut for us by engaging with EU, and hopefully we can have a special workshop between EU and us to find ways how we can realize APG, learning from the experience of EU, including the financial model, the technical aspect of it, how they harmonize the rules and regulation, the business model, what are the challenges or problems occurring when they exchange of inter-borders electricity and so on. So these are the things that we can learn from them.
Sekretariat Perkongsian Ekonomi Komprehensif Serantau atau ARCEP sedang dipertimbangkan untuk menjadikan perjanjian perdagangan terbesar dunia itu lebih relevan dan dilaksanakan dengan lebih berkesan. Menteri Pelaburan, Perdagangan dan Industri Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Abdul Aziz berkata, cadangan itu antara perkara utama dibincangkan pada mesyuarat Menteri-Menteri ARCEP keempat selain pelan untuk mencadangkan sidang kemuncak pemimpin ARCEP penuh yang akan mengekalkan komitmen terhadap perdagangan dan pelaburan serantau serta mengkaji kemungkinan memperluas keanggotaan.
Beliau berkata demikian selepas mesyuarat itu yang diadakan di luar mesyuarat Menteri-Menteri Ekonomi ASEAN AEM ke-57 dan mesyuarat berkaitan pada Khamis. Mesyuarat RCEP itu dipengerusikan bersama Menteri Ekonomi, Perdagangan dan Industri Jepun, Muto Yuji dan Timbalan Menteri Perdagangan Indonesia, Diah Roro Esti Widya Putri. Tengku Zafrul berkata menteri-menteri bersetuju dengan 3 keputusan utama pada mesyuarat tersebut. Katanya terdapat 15 negara yang terlibat dalam RCEP dan semua bersetuju ketua-ketua negara dan kerajaan akan mengadakan pertemuan semasa mesyuarat RCEP. Kedua, kata Tengku Zafrul, pihaknya akan membincangkan agenda sidang kemuncak itu dan mengeluarkan kenyataan bersama. Manakala ketiga ialah untuk menyokong perdagangan, pelaburan dan ekonomi serantau selain terbuka untuk mempelawa ahli baru menyertai RCEP. Ditanya mengenai kemungkinan bantahan terhadap perluasan oleh negara seperti Hong Kong, Sri Lanka, Chile dan Bangladesh, Tengku Zafrul berkata ahli RCEP terbuka kepada perbincangan tetapi keputusan muktamad terletak pada pemimpin. Antara negara yang terlibat RCEP termasuk China, Jepun, Korea Selatan, Australia dan New Zealand. RCEP belum mengadakan mesyuarat rasmi pemimpin sejak perjanjian perdagangan itu ditandatangani pada November 2020. RCEP kekal sebagai kawasan perdagangan bebas terbesar di dunia, meliputi 30% daripada KDNK Global.
Negara-negara anggota Perkongsian Ekonomi Komprehensif Serantau RCEP yang diterajui ASEAN terbuka kepada usaha mengembangkan pakatan itu yang merangkumi sekitar 30% daripada keluaran dalam negara kasar, perdagangan dan penduduk dunia. Timbalan Menteri Perdagangan Indonesia, Diah Roro Esti Widya Putri adalah individu pertama yang mengesahkan bahawa rundingan mengenai penyertaan itu sedang dijalankan.
Menurutnya, setakat ini terdapat 4 negara yang terlibat dalam proses penyertaan itu. Walaupun tidak memaklumkan tempoh masa tertentu bagi negara baru membuat penyertaan secara rasmi, katanya butiran terperinci mengenainya akan diumumkan dalam masa terdekat. Dia Roro turut menegaskan tiada sebarang bantahan daripada negara anggota sedia ada terhadap penyertaan baru tersebut. Dalam kenyataan bersama yang dikeluarkan pada Rabu, AEM telah menggesa para pegawai untuk mempercepat proses penyertaan tersebut. Menteri-menteri menekankan bahawa memperluas keahlian RCEP akan dapat mengukuh, meningkat dan mempelbagaikan lagi hubungan ekonomi dengan rakan luar selaras dengan strategi ASEAN Global. RCEP terdiri daripada 10 negara ASEAN serta China, Jepun, Korea Selatan, Australia dan New Zealand.
Malaysia akan bekerjasama dengan Timor Leste untuk melaksanakan kemudahan perayaan ASEAN bagi memperkukuh keterhubungan digital menjelang sidang kemuncak ASEAN ke-47 di Kuala Lumpur bulan depan. Menteri Komunikasi Datuk Fahmi Fadzil berkata Suruhanjaya Komunikasi dan Multimedia Malaysia MCMC disaran untuk mengadakan rundingan segera dengan syarikat telekomunikasi bagi menyelaras pelaksanaan inisiatif itu.
Menurutnya, banyak syarikat telekomunikasi mempunyai pelan perayaan masing-masing tetapi Malaysia mahu mewujudkan perayaan ASEAN yang lebih menyeluruh. Dengan ini, pelancong Malaysia ke Dili boleh menikmati akses internet lebih mudah dan berpatutan. Beliau menambah pengalaman Malaysia melaksanakan rangkaian 5G dengan pantas, liputan meluas dan harga berpatutan boleh dikongsi dengan Timor Leste, khususnya bagi memperkukuh infrastruktur telekomunikasi. Katanya kira-kira 15% daripada 1.4 juta penduduk Timor Leste mempunyai telefon bimbit, sekaligus menunjukkan potensi kerjasama luas dalam bidang digital. Selain itu, Fahmi mengesyorkan bernama RTM dan MCMC menjalin kerjasama dengan agensi seumpamanya di Timor Leste, termasuk menjemput wartawan negara itu mengikuti kursus di Institut Penyiaran dan Penerangan Tun Abdul Razak. Langkah itu menurutnya akan membantu meningkatkan profesionalisme kewartawanan, memperkukuh kapasiti media serta pendedahan kepada teknologi baru. Lawatan rasmi 2 hari Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim ke Timor Leste yang berakhir pada Rabu turut disifatkan signifikan kerana ia merupakan lawatan pertama oleh seorang Perdana Menteri Malaysia selepas 22 tahun. Lawatan itu juga berlangsung hanya beberapa minggu sebelum Timor Leste diterima secara rasmi sebagai anggota ASEAN ke-11. Menurut Fahmi, detik bersejarah ini bakal menyaksikan penyertaan Timor Leste secara rasmi ke dalam ASEAN ketika Malaysia menjadi tuan rumah sidang kemuncak ke-47, sesuatu yang amat bermakna bagi hubungan dua hala dan rantau ini.
Baik, kita berhenti seketika, kembali selepas ini.
Di dalam setiap berita yang dibawa, konteks amat penting. Cara kita mendapat berita kian berubah. Melalui media sosial maupun saluran digital yang lain serta kaca TV. Kami sentiasa membawakan yang tergempar dan terkini.
Kita buat sesuatu yang berbeza.
Teraskan acuan verifikasi yang diamalkan supaya setiap fakta adalah sahih. Daripada analisis pelbagai sudut yang mendalam, laporan-laporan khas dan perbincangan yang membina negara. Inklusif, suara rakyat kami ajukan. Keseimbangan persepsi kami pastikan. Kerana setiap cerita mempunyai impak yang tersendiri dan perlu dibawa dengan penelitian yang terperinci. Pastikan Astro AWANI menjadi pilihan anda tidak kira di mana sahaja anda berada. Saluran berita paling dipercayai di Malaysia.
Ini badan kita. Medan keberanian dan maruah dipertaruhkan.
Satu lawan satu melepasi benda kedua. Wow!
Pertarungan sengit, tekanan memuncak.
Selamat datang ke Liga Super.
Hanya yang kental akan berdiri megah. Ini badan kita. Liga Super secara langsung di Astro Arena Bola dan Astro Go.
It's been almost 3 quarters since the launch of Johor Singapore Special Economic Zone that aim at boosting cross-border trade and positioning Johor as a new growth hub. So, in this segment, we're going to take a deeper look. So, how much progress has been made and what is the next step? And for that, joining us is Datuk Sheikh Shamsul Ibrahim, Chief Executive Officer of the Malaysian Investment Development Authority, MIDA. I want to say thank you very much, Datuk Sheikh, for joining me. Firstly, we know that it has been almost 3 quarters since the launch of JSEZ. We want to take a look at the progress currently. How does the JSEZ fit into the Malaysia national, a broader investment narrative, especially in the context of NIMP 2030 and the national reforms? Maybe you can share with us, Dato.
Thank you, Nina, for having me in the Astro AWANI interview session. To me, the Johor Singapore Special Economic Zone, or famously known as JSEZ, is our most strategic play in ASEAN. Mm-hmm. And ASEAN is exactly where global companies want to be. This area, as many of us are aware, spans over 3,500 square kilometers, right? And more than 4 times the size of Singapore. And this special economic zone is about combining Singapore's world-class connectivity and financial expertise, and with what Johor have, the land, resources, industrial growth potential. This is a genuine win-win that positions both countries to capture the next wave of global investment shifts. And we have set, the government has set clear goals, for this area, or JSSEZ. 50 projects within the first 5 years and 100 by 2035, anchored across 7 flagship zones and 2 designated areas, stretching from Johor Bahru City Centre to Pengerang. These projects target high-impact sectors like advanced manufacturing, logistics, digital economy, green energy, food security, as well as tourism, to name a few. And each one directly supports NIP 2030's mission that are moving Malaysia further up global value chains, accelerating our net zero ambitions, building tech champions, and also creating high-value jobs for Malaysians. Crucially, the Johor State Government also has already rolled out key reforms to make this vision work on the ground. The Investment and Facilitation Centre Johor, or IMFCJ, is now a true one-stop centre, where they are cutting red tapes and making, approvals fast-tracking approvals. Local authorities are basically digitizing business licensing, streamlining land approvals, and also improving custom coordination, even creating task forces that resolve investor issues in real time. So to me, the message is very clear. This area is not just bilateral idea on paper. It is being implemented with reforms and facilitation that make Johor and Malaysia faster, more transparent, and also more competitive for global investors.
As you mentioned, this is not only as a bilateral agreement on paper, but to upgrade Johor, Malaysia, Singapore to be more transparent and more resilient within the global view. From MIDA perspective, Dato', what key progress has been achieved so far, and what are some of the level of interest in investment within the JSSEZ that MIDA has observed, both from Malaysia and Singapore investors? Not only that, but also the global player.
Okay, from our perspective, this special economic zone has achieved remarkable progress in a very short span of time. It began with the MOU signed in January last year, which created 4 working groups. And MIDA plays a leading role in 2. Economic sectors and also ease of doing business. That reflects our mandate to attract and facilitate investments. And that foundation led to the formal signing of the JSSEZ agreement in January 2025. And since then, the results speak for themselves. Between 2024 or last year and first half of 2025, we approved nearly 500 investment projects, or to be exact, about 496 investment projects worth 70.8 billion ringgit Malaysia within this area or special economic zone. To put that in perspective, that's almost 10 times of the target, or 5-year target, where we deliver it within just 18 months. And even more encouraging, because we don't just talk about approvals here, we are also talking about implementation of projects. So more than half of that 496 projects have been implemented. To be exact, 268 projects, or 54%, are already being implemented across many high-value sectors, such as information and communication technology, electronics, including semiconductors, machinery and equipment, chemicals, to name a few. And the investors, came from many countries, whether in the region or globally, right? Our top sources of investors, as you mentioned just now, it's not just from Singapore. They are from, of course, Singapore is one of them, but they are also coming from Japan, China, US, and Europe. And this is a clear signal that this area is attracting both neighboring and also international players who view Malaysia and Singapore as complementary platform. The IMFCJ alone recorded nearly 700 inquiries in its first 8 months of this year. They've identified 27 billion ringgit in potential investment projects, of which 70 billion ringgit are already committed. And these are not just numbers. We see real projects materializing on the ground. I can name a few here. One is Ferrotech. They are in the semiconductor machinery and equipment industry. They have completed about 550 million ringgit facility in Pasir Gudang and creating about 400 jobs, where out of these products will generate about 600 million ringgit in annual exports. Yeah. The other one is STT GDC Malaysia, where they are developing 22 acre of hyperscale or AI-ready data center in Nusa Cemerlang Industrial Park, Johor. I think the IU workload for them is about 100, for this project is 120 megawatt by 2027. Yeah. The project will support advanced cloud computing and AI applications, and that position Malaysia as digital gateway for Southeast Asia. The other one is ColorCon Malaysia. This is from the US. They are investing 400 over million ringgit in the state-of-the-art facility in SRC Johor. The project will be operational by Q3 2025. This project will integrate Industry Revolution 4.0 technologies and energy efficient systems. This project will also advance Malaysia pharma R&D ecosystem, where they manufacture high-value film coatings and excipients and create 88 scale jobs while strengthening regional supply chains. The other project worth to mention here is Insulate Malaysia. They are also from the US, where they are expanding their global footprint with 200 million facility. 200 is in USD, so you times 4 is about close to 900 million ringgit, what they call facility in Gelang Patah. And they are manufacturing insulin systems. And last but not least is South Korea, SPC Group, where they are anchoring halal manufacturing operation in Johor with the R&D support in Singapore. So each of these projects proves to us that the special economic zone model actually is working. It is delivering investment that create high skilled jobs, strengthen the SME linkages, and also move Malaysia up the global value chain. And it's, as you asked just now, it's fully aligned with NIMP 2030.
All right, Dato', we talk about a lot of big projects comes with big responsibility and commitment from the planning until the end of execution. Maybe you can share with us, how is MIDA working together with the federal and even state, Johor state authorities to ensure a smooth implementation within the GSSEZ framework, Dato'? Maybe you can share with us.
Okay, well, this is very, to me, important questions and important area for us to basically share more information because without this close collaboration between federal, state, and also local authorities, it's going to be an uphill task for us to ensure these approvals can be, turned into realized projects, right? So again, the success of this Johor Singapore Special Economic Zone actually depends on seamless collaboration across the federal government, Johor government, and also local authorities. And our role here is to make sure investors enjoy a smooth journey from approvals to infrastructure readiness and project implementation. At federal level, we have the Invest Malaysia Facilitation Center at MIDA headquarters, which acts as a one-stop center for licenses, regulatory matters, and cross-cutting issues like immigration and customs. On the ground in Johor, this model has been extended through the IMFCJ, launched in February 2025, with Invest Johor and IRDA as among the key stakeholders from Johor. This center is the operational engine of the JSSEZ, including the Johor Super Lane, a fast-track initiative with 6 local authorities that speeds up approvals, including the CCC for factories and buildings. And beyond facilitation, we coordinate directly with utility and infrastructure providers, such as TNB, and also the Syarikat Air Johor, to resolve practical issues for companies. And because this is a bilateral effort, we work closely with the Singapore side as well. Our key stakeholders in Singapore, which include the Ministry of Trade and Industry Singapore, our counterpart EDB Singapore, and also Enterprise Singapore. And to them, they have this JSSEZ project office that complements our work by supporting Singapore-based companies or foreign companies that are operating in Singapore who wish to expand into Johor. So looking forward, this mechanism like IMFCJ and Johor Super Lane are not just designed to solve today's issues, but to institutionalize a predictable, transparent, and investor-friendly environment as the area grows.
We know that JSSEZ is a move beyond being a close neighbor, deepen bilateral ties, but it's also to being a co-creator of a shared economic space, and also both countries can grow and together be a stronger hub in ASEAN and the regional level. But Datuk, we know we need a good collaboration between both of the countries. So what are some of the key programs to promote JSSEZ within the global context, especially to Japan and China? Maybe share with us some of the outcomes.
Well, since January this year, we've been actively promoting this area, right? Through our MIDA offices. We work hand in hand with the Johor State Government, where we engage government agencies, business chambers, industry association, and multinational companies to highlight these opportunities that Special Economic Zone brings to them, right? So in total, we have about 10 of our overseas centers across 8 countries that have implemented 33 promotional programs, where these programs have already reaching out to more than 4,000 industry leaders worldwide. The efforts span all major markets, which include US, UK, Australia, Japan, South Korea, China, India, and Singapore as well. Some of the highlights, like Tokyo, we have this stand-alone Johor Singapore SEZ seminar, where we do this together with Sumitomo Mitsui Bank Corporation. That is for the Japanese investors. In China, we do events in Guangzhou, Beijing, and Shanghai. Plus joint promotion with Singapore EDB in Ningbo and Wuxi cities. In Singapore, this is the most intensive or extensive outreach. We have already implemented 10 programs that garner more than 2,000 participants. Some of the events that we do this, what we call briefing and seminar, including SMF Manufacturing Day and Standard Chartered Malaysia, Singapore cross-border event. We also do this program in India, as I said earlier, US, Australia, UK, and South Korea. And just yesterday, I actually met with the delegate, business delegate from Wuxi City, 11 companies altogether, where they are involved in advanced manufacturing, machinery equipment for semiconductor industries, where they are now looking at Johor. Many of them are actually looking at Johor. Some of them are still looking around whether Kuala Lumpur, Penang can be their what they call location for their operation, right? So to me, the results are clear for us to raise investor awareness and deeper Malaysia-Singapore collaboration in markets, and also active pipelines, especially from Japan, China, and Singapore, where we are now exploring concrete projects in Johor through this special economic zone.
And these some of the overseas key programs to promote, and probably what some of the milestones that we can expect over the next year, Dato. Maybe share with us what some of the future planning, and will there be more batch of investor will be announced soon?
Okay, as we approach the first anniversary of this JSSEZ, I mean, definitely we are proud of the progress so far, but even more focus on what comes next. This area is already proof that Malaysia can implement complex cross-border projects, and that our reforms are not just promises, but actions bring results. In the near term, more project announcements are on the way. We are working with investors in many what we call areas or industries like advanced manufacturing, logistics, digital economy, green industries, medical devices, with several projects in final stages. A strong interest is coming from Singapore, Japan, China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. And a key upcoming milestone is the second JSSEZ Joint Investment Forum on 14 October 2025 at Marina Bay Sands. This is in collaboration with what we call Singapore EDB, right? I think Enterprise Singapore is also a supporting partner for this event. So this event actually will showcase progress and opportunities to investors, and also spotlight sectors such as, the priority industries that we want to push further for JSSEZ. Looking ahead in the next 3 to 5 years, the focus will be on deepening supply chain integration, strengthening ecosystems in semiconductors, green technology, smart manufacturing, to name a few, and this will position the JSSEZ as the hub for companies serving Malaysia, Singapore, and the wider ASEAN market. For MIDA, this area is more than an investment zone. It is a symbol of Malaysia's broader commitment to efficiency, innovation, and regional integration. So each project rooted here adds credibility to our message. When Malaysia commits to reform and works hand in hand with our neighbors, we create opportunities that benefits all.
Definitely, this is very exciting moving forward and a very proud milestone that we have achieved so far. Again, I want to say thank you very much, Dato', for this inspiring journey and experience. And what are some of the future progress or future steps for investors to take? Again, I want to say thank you very much to Dato' Sheikh Shamsul Ibrahim, the Chief Executive Officer of the Malaysian Investment Development Authority, MIDA, for helping us assess the progress, the key sectors and investors' interests, and also the collaborations of the government and how JSSEZ is playing a big and strategic role in strengthening Malaysia and Singapore economic ties. And definitely all of this sharing and story will be featured in astronews.com and across all social media platforms.
Ada yang perdebatan bahawa GST perlu dikembalikan semula kerana ada yang mempertikaikan bahawa SST itu tidak efektif.
Isu buruh kanak-kanak bukan sahaja dalam bentuk fizikal tetapi juga bentuk moden yang lebih licik dan juga terselindung.
Kita tengok buruh kanak-kanak dan ada juga buruh paksa kanak-kanak.
Kumpulan FB dikenali sebagai grup budak-budak sekolah rendah yang didakwa menyebarkan gambar remaja perempuan tidak senonoh telah pun ditutup.
Tariffs on imports of products from China reaching up to 145%.
Tariffs on the rest of the world are sitting at 10%, with the potential for reciprocal tariffs to be reimposed within 90 days.
Kunjungan rasmi Presiden China ke Malaysia ini menunjukkan komitmen kedua-dua negara untuk meningkatkan hubungan diplomatik ke tahap yang lebih strategik.
Daulat Tuanku.
Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight with me, Tehmina Kaoosji. Niaga Spotlight takes us through the week in economic analysis and future affairs. Now today on Analysis, our spotlight is straight on Budget 2026 and tax strategy for Malaysia's tech leap. As we count down to Budget 2026, Malaysia's tech ambitions are at a pretty crucial crossroads. Budget 2025 was the country's largest ever, 421 billion ringgit, including 86 billion ringgit for development projects, and also introduced a new investment incentive framework backed by a 1 billion ringgit strategic fund to support high growth, high value, the HGHV sectors. Now, export tax incentives were also expanded to cover integrated circuit or IC design, a move aimed at pulling Malaysia further up the semiconductor value chain. Now, at the heart of this push is the National Semiconductor Strategy, which targets 500 billion ringgit in public and private investments over the next decade, with 25 billion ringgit in fiscal support for Phase 1 alone. So far, 63 billion ringgit in semiconductor commitments have been secured, mostly from foreign players. Still, competition is fierce. Vietnam, India, Indonesia are aggressively rolling out tax packages to attract chip makers and design hubs. With OECD global minimum tax rules now in effect, Malaysia can no longer rely on outdated tax holidays. It must deliver Pillar 2 compliant, stable incentives and clear policies that de-risk long-term investments. With these global markets shifting and export markets tightening, Budget 2026 needs to move beyond rhetoric and place execution clarity at the center. So today we ask, can Malaysia design a tax playbook bold enough to transform its semiconductor sector and digital economy? Joining me for this most timely discussion is Keegan Ong, tax partner and Korean desk leader at PwC Malaysia, to break down the fiscal levers to get right. Very good morning, Keegan. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm good. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. So, Keegan, a very timely discussion, and let's move into it by looking first at the importance of stability and predictability for long-term semiconductor investments. A couple of thoughts first, moving from here.
Sure. I suppose going back to the earlier point that you mentioned, Tehmina, just now, Malaysia as a nation, I think we have been doing very great in the semiconductor or the E&E sectors, whereby, you know, we do have a lot of global players, local players that are doing very well in these sectors. So, you know, in terms of stability and predictability in terms of the tax regime is indeed critical, because when we talk about these kind of sectors, the E&E sectors, semicon sectors, it's not something, you know, the durations for them to actually to build out the plant, for them to get into operations, to make profits, it takes about more than 5 years to 10 years generally, right?
That's right.
So, you know, over the years, you know, for the past few years, if you look at it from a tax perspective, tax policy perspective, I think government has introduced various measures, you know, for the example, you know, introductions of capital gains tax, you know, updates to dividend taxations, the rollout of in-invoicing. All this, you know, it reflects the Malaysia commitment, you know, to fiscal sustainability, as well as, you know, to actually to comply with global best practices. So while these changes are necessary, but, you know, it then actually creates challenges for businesses because they are keep moving, the tax rules are keep changing. But on top of that, I think what you have mentioned just now is the incentive framework. I think that is a good move that the government has introduced, you know, to provide certainty for foreign investors as well as domestic players when it comes to tax incentive, in the sense that, you know, what they have introduced and mentioned in the budget is the new incentive framework will be an outcome-based and tiered approach. So what does that really mean to general in public is that, you know, if you want to entitle to certain tax incentive based on your investment in Malaysia, you must ensure that you are able to deliver the commitment that you actually promise. So generally, the commitment covers, you know, capex investment, you know, building the plant, buying land in Malaysia. We also talk about, you know, hire of Malaysian employees. Though the number of employees, that can be conditions to the incentive. So what the outcome-based means, if the investor has committed to all these conditions, they must ensure that they are able to deliver and achieve in order for them to enjoy the basic tax incentive, right? If they are able to do more than that, in addition to the basic requirements, for example, they're going to partner with local suppliers, local vendors, they're going to hire more employees, they're going to get interns to work in their companies, or they can also, you know, to meet certain ESG requirements, for example, talking about environmental, right? So if they're able to achieve more than the standard conditions, then they will be able to enjoy a better incentive.
Exactly.
So,
it's like a give and take sort of a framework. And ideally speaking then, Keegan, it also perhaps places Malaysia in a more competitive stead as opposed to lots of neighboring countries which are already offering multi-year guarantees.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, I like the idea of outcome-based because it really ties back to what you can deliver. Because the old model or the old regime itself is that, you know, whether there's proper monitoring, you know, whether the investors actually deliver what they have committed. Because at the end of the day, you see, when government gives the incentive, what the government is actually is losing tax revenue, right?
Exactly.
So,
correct.
you know, we must...
In exchange for, you know, setting up of businesses and multiplying factors for the economy.
But what is also important is we must ensure they actually deliver what they have committed. So that's why, you know, the model has changed. In the past, you know, if the government do monitor or do, you know, generally the evaluations or the assessment will be done through a tax audit by the tax authority. If the company so happen did not subject to tax audit, and then no one will actually know that whether they are meeting the conditions or not. So, you know, the outcome-based and tier approach, I think, is something that is really helpful because that provides certainty to investors that, you know, at the upfront, they already know they need to deliver this in order for them to enjoy the incentive.
Absolutely. So that is a framework which makes a lot of sense. However, now let's go a little bit deeper, Keegan, into looking at incentives which drive spillovers to local suppliers. The fact of the matter is, of course, as the ecosystem was set up over the past 50-odd years, big semiconductor players were often the ones who received the benefits, the lion's share of tax incentives. So it's not so much about completely shifting the focus to the local suppliers, but sort of balancing the books a little more, right?
Okay. So perhaps, I think that's the perceptions, Tehmina, because when the government actually provide the tax incentive, the incentive itself does not differentiate whether you are foreign players or your local companies. As long as you meet the conditions, right, and you are providing the so-called promoted activities, or you are producing promoted products, you would then entitle yourself to apply for the incentive, right? But it's just that I think perceptionally, people think that generally only big players can entitle to that. So that is something that I suppose, for local players, they probably have to go back and take a look, right, in terms of what they are doing, whether they can qualify for incentive or
whether it applies under the fine print in a sense.
Correct. So talking about the local ecosystem, those kind of stuff, I suppose in some of the informations or conversations with the government authorities, I think the new incentive framework is very much to develop the industry as a whole, right? Because if you look at in the past, when we talk about incentive for the E&E sectors or the semicon, a lot of it focusing on the downstream activities.
Very
right?
true, correct.
Not about the upstream whereby design, those kind of stuff, right?
And downstream is clearly, Malaysia contributes to up to 13% of that activity.
Yep.
It's a bountiful market, but it's lower value compared to, of course, the higher.
Correct. That is also because I think in the past, what happened is our incentive regime, it goes by, whether the activities fall within the promoted list or not. If you go to MIDA being the principal promotion agency in Malaysia, so all incentive will go to them. They have a promoted list of activities and products. So in order for you to entitle to incentive, the first test is whether the activities fall under that list or not.
Understood.
It's a positive list, right? And if you look at it in the E&E sectors, like what you mentioned, we're focusing a lot on packaging, those kind of things. And I think moving forward, what would be helpful is actually to expand, the activities or the products to a wider coverage, whereby it covers from design all the way down to packaging or whatever. Whereby, we should actually evaluate the investments more holistic, looking at it, what are the contributions with that activities to the ecosystem itself, rather than just on the product. So I think that would be helpful. And one of the conditions, or generally what investors need to do, is they need to provide certain commitment in terms of how they're going to cooperate with local vendors. Because I think with their presence in Malaysia, certainly there will be technology transfers, knowledge transfers to the local vendors.
Absolutely. And perhaps looking beyond possible transfers to local vendors, etc., could there perhaps be possible deductions actually put into place to encourage this from the get-go, particularly for the MNCs who may have the capacity already to do this?
I think that could be an option that government can explore, right? So I think what you are trying to say is, let's say they participate or collaborate with local vendors,
sure,
they get certain tax benefits, right? But one perceptions that I want to correct as well, a lot of people think that tax incentive is magic. It can do a lot.
It's a silver
of things.
bullet.
All right.
Yeah.
But I think in addition to tax incentive, what the investors or the local players are looking at is also, whether the infrastructure itself is good enough for the industry. Talent, I think, I deal a lot with investors. I think one of the challenges that they're really facing is actually to get the right talent, right? Of course, then, raw material, whether there's a availability in terms of the raw material, those are the things that really important. So, tax incentive can be a booster to enhance the investors, to entice the investors to come to in Malaysia. But I think we have to look at it from an overall perspective, how, you can actually make it more attractive in a sense. Yeah.
Now, speaking about making the entire ecosystem more attractive, let's touch on what you'd mentioned a little earlier, which is looking at ESG alignment. Now, of course, naturally, these are all energy-intensive industries, and they're notoriously water-intensive in particular as well. So how could potentially Budget 2026 integrate green tech, low-carbon transition incentives and bake it into the system?
Okay. Presently, I think we do have quite a number of incentives pertaining to green, right? We have the GITA, G-I-T-A, Green Investment Tax Allowance. We have the Green Investment Tax exemption as well. So that basically, I think the government has introduced that a few years ago really to encourage companies, local companies or even local players to adopt the use of green assets, green equipment, green building, etc. Right? One thing that we have not had is on the carbon tax itself. Right? I think last year the government did mention in the budget that we are working towards that, because to implement the carbon tax mechanism in Malaysia is not so straightforward, because you need to have relevant agencies and ministries to be on board as well, because you need to have the policy itself in place, right? And then you need to set the pricing, and then you need to determine how the tax mechanism will work. So hopefully we could see more information this year in 2026 budget, because it was already announced in the past budget that the government is preparing for that. So hopefully there will be something.
Absolutely. And there's also, I think, the wider global landscape whereby suppliers are having their own decarbonization goals.
Yep.
So it might be good to already set this in place, because then perhaps Malaysia could take advantage of the so-called green premium, because low carbon credentials could actually lift the average selling price of product coming out of Malaysia, right?
Exactly. That's right.
So there's a lot to be done, and hopefully a couple of the Budget 2026 announcement will lead back to clearer direction on what we can be doing with these frameworks.
Yes.
Well, Keegan, thank you so much for the conversation so far. Lots more to dig into, but we do take a short break. We'll be right back after with Niaga Spotlight. Don't go anywhere.
Terbukti bahawa tahap kesediaan digital yang tinggi membolehkan usahawan PMKS menerima kemajuan teknologi, meningkatkan inovasi dan daya saing. Nak tahu bagaimana nak menilai tahap kesediaan digital dan mempercepatkan transformasi digital syarikat anda? Temui kami di 5 lokasi: Perak, Sabah, Kelantan, Melaka dan Selangor. Jumpa di sana.
Asia tumpuan utama dunia. Dengan ekonomi yang semakin rancak, pembangunan lestari dan tenaga boleh diperbaharui, apakah pula impak kecerdasan buatan AI dalam perkembangan teknologi dan masa depan pekerjaan? Kami mendalami setiap berita dan cerita. Saksikan diskusi, dialog dan laporan khas di Agenda Awani Asia bersama koresponden khas kami setiap Sabtu 9 malam di semua platform Astro Awani.
Welcome back to Niaga Spotlight. Still with me, Tehmina, and today I have Keegan Ong, tax partner with PwC Malaysia, looking at Budget 2026 and tax for the tech ecosystem. So Keegan, going straight back into the discussion, let's now focus on global minimum tax, GMT, transfer pricing, as well as competitiveness, and what this means for Malaysia, particularly with the OECD Pillar 2 coming into effect for the financial year of 2025.
Okay. So I guess, before we get into the details, I think it's good for everyone to know about what is Pillar 2, right? So Pillar 2 generally means that it applies on multinationals, big multinationals with certain revenue threshold. So as a group, if their revenue threshold is 750 million euro, then they will fall under Pillar 2. So what does that really mean to Malaysia is, if you look at the category of investors, so there will be a group of investors that fall under Pillar 2 because they are big enough. There is another category of investors that don't fall within the Pillar 2, right? So when we talk about incentive, if you look at it from a Malaysia context, traditionally, we rely quite heavily using incentive as a tool to actually attract investors.
That's right.
To Malaysia.
The usual tax holidays whereby you could get a decade, maybe more even.
Correct. And that not only happened in Malaysia, I think within the ASEAN region, I think these countries are using different type of incentive to get people to come in. So with Pillar 2 in place, what that means is, for companies that fall into the Pillar 2 category, they have a minimum tax to pay, right? So if they invest in Malaysia and the Malaysian government granted them tax incentive and then they don't pay a minimum tax of 15%, they have to pay the tax somewhere else, be it in their home country or whatever, right? So in order for us to really encounter that situations, I think the incentive framework that the government is working on is supposed to be announced this year, right? The details has already taken into account, how to address all these challenges. Like I mentioned, I think it should cater for 2 categories of investors. So Then you talk about transfer pricing, right? I think transfer pricing is something that it happens, when there's related party transactions. In short, it means that, the transactions between a related party has to be at arm's length. So if you will go to market to buy the same product or service from a third party, the pricing should be similar, right? So that you don't get into a situation whereby you're trying to put more profits to a lower tax country. So with transfer pricing, this helps to mitigate these kind of situations as well as tax leakages. So competitiveness that you asked about, just now, how to remain competitive. I think with the new incentive framework, I think that would help. Tax incentive may not be the only tools moving forward to attract investments. We may need to look at, whether government grant, how to develop the ecosystem to be more business friendly, business competitive. I think those are the things or areas that the government should actually focus on.
And basically competing on areas of certainty as well as speed, just for ease of business, right? Correct. Because that ultimately is what not only attracts investors, but also ensures that they stay on. So perhaps when we look at the kind of disputes that semiconductor multinationals may come into in the future, do you feel there's an opportunity for Malaysia to maybe brand a rules-based regime, sort of, which actually anchors long-term capex as a focus?
Potentially, I think that could be an area, because I think moving forward, what the I think the government direction is also, when investors come to Malaysia to really sell their plant, their businesses, we want the high value kind of activities that are really being actually undertaken in Malaysia, as compared in the past that you only come here to do some simple work, simple assembly kind of things.
Entry-level manufacturing. Yeah.
So I think we want to move to a higher, within the value chain to a higher level. So I think that would help. But of course, I think going back to the earlier point is, I think we need to ensure that there is a good ecosystem to support all these activities to happen.
Absolutely. So speaking of that, point to ponder would be building that digital and design hub capacity, right, Keegan? So what sort of tax policies could perhaps incentivize higher value activities?
Actually, currently, our incentive already designed in a manner that to incentivize a little bit more, or I mean they can get a better package compared to a normal activities. Example, I think if you look at the present incentive, the two categories are pioneer status or income tax exemptions.
That's right.
So it generally in the form that you either get 70% exemption or 100% exemptions for a period of 5 years or 10 years or more than that. So how do government actually differentiate, should I give you 70% or should I give you 100%? It really depends on the activities that you're going to perform. One of the consideration is, if your activities comprises a lot of high technology, it brings high value, it creates a lot of talent, you requires a lot of vendor corporations locally. So that will actually give a better rating for you to get a better incentive. So presently, they are already taken into consideration. But like I mentioned earlier, the current tax regime is going based on a positive list per se. You must fall within that list in order for you to get incentive. So moving forward, I suppose, for government to consider is whether it can be the other way, whereby to evaluate the incentive, the investors have to bring their business case to the government to showcase that, why should government incentivize them and what they can actually deliver to the country as a whole. And, what are their commitments, how are they going to develop the ecosystems in Malaysia. I think that would be a better way.
And absolutely, these highest value stages of the semiconductor chain, we're talking about EDA software, cloud AI infrastructure, all of these are still, perhaps the best term might be nascent. Industry-wise, right? So from there, actually, what would be interesting is looking at administrative certainty and also speed for investors. Because investors, of course, they usually cite regulatory barriers, bottlenecks, as well as slow approvals. So looking at the entire tax ecosystems and administration-wise, what can be done to smoothen the process even further?
Okay. A couple of points here. I agree. I think when it comes to applying for incentive, setting up companies in Malaysia, it does take some time, all right? But if you look at ASEAN, we are not so bad, to be very frank, because I handle quite a lot of investors' cases. We also hear from them. We also talk to our colleagues in other countries.
Sure.
We are not too bad, actually. If you look at the ease of doing business ranking, we're probably just behind Singapore in the ASEAN region. But coming back to that, I think we can do better, right? If you look at the current processes when it comes to applying for incentive, I think the two principal agencies in Malaysia is MIDA as well as MDEC, depending on which industry you are. So digital will then generally go for MDEC. The manufacturing side of activities will go to MIDA. In fact, I think I must actually say that they have improved a lot in terms of the speed of evaluations, assessing the applications, because a lot of it is now online based. It's online because they use systems to actually capture the data. But of course, I think how to make it better, how to make it more friendly to investors. My advice is really, for investors, they perhaps can actually reach out to professionals to really to work together in terms of building out the business case to make the applications. Because a lot of the matters, based on my experience in dealing with them is, it requires financial projections. You need to build out a business case whereby, as a business owner, depending, whether you are big companies or you are multinationals. Multinational, you may have resources to actually to prepare or have knowledge or experience to do that. For a smaller kind of entities or corporates, they may not have that experience.
The decision-making and reducing investor risk takes a significant amount of capital as well as resources, right?
Correct. So, I think we are on the right track as a nation. It's just a matter what we need to ensure is we review periodically. We get feedback from the investors, from the professionals, from the businesses, how to make it more conducive, the environment more conducive for investors or businesses in Malaysia. I think that is something that we really need to do.
Absolutely. And as we move towards landing the conversation, I just want to touch a little on a real bugbear when it comes to any expansion for especially AGHV industries, our lack of domestic talent. In particular, when it comes to the semicon, AI and related industries, we're only producing about 5,000 engineering graduates, for example, per year. That is a huge deficit, considering that we need in excess of perhaps 50 to 60,000 by 2030, Keegan. Any ideas about how the kind of JV deals between multinationals who want to settle themselves here, as well as talent grooming and upskilling, could perhaps coalesce and help fill this gap for Malaysia? Because we are likely not going to be able to do it if we're relying only on the numbers of straight graduates coming out of our institutions, right?
Yep. So I think there are a couple of initiatives that is ongoing. For the investors that coming to invest in Malaysia, they are required to actually collaborate with local universities. In what sense it's like, one way could be getting some of the students to be as an interns in those companies. Secondly, is also they could have certain special program or specific program with universities on certain subject or area, right? So in a way to really to develop the next generations, to prepare them to come out to the working environment. Of course, I think there are many Malaysians outside of Malaysia as well.
Absolutely, right? That's so true too.
Whether tax incentive or tax measures can be one way or one option to really to attract them to come back.
Yeah, that brain circulation which we want to be having.
Correct.
Yeah.
So those are things that I think the government may consider, because currently there are already incentives for those that return to Malaysia to work. Yeah.
Clearly. And some final thoughts then, Keegan, as we close out, looking at how Budget 2026 can also ensure that tax tools are reaching our smaller players in the ecosystems, in particular the SMEs. We've got a very thriving SMEs, which lead particularly in Penang, for example. We've got over 3,000 of them feeding into about 350 excess of the MNCs who deal in chips, etc., E&E.
Okay. Again, I think the perception is, people always think that tax incentives or any tax measures only apply to big corporates. That's not the true situations. So, what they can really see, really evaluate or assess for the SME is really, to get some, they can actually reach out to tax authorities, to their tax agents, to explore any of the incentives they can actually apply for.
The applicability for that.
Correct. Because tax incentive itself does not distinguish whether you are big or small companies. Although in certain situations, they may have paid out capital requirements, right? That could be a hurdle for the SME, but generally we don't. And just to cover up, put on another point is, Tehmina, is I think we do have incentive for SME as well, right? So I think what the government can perhaps to consider is also, to find out what are the pain point of the MSME, and then to be more targeted, to help them to strive to the next level. And what is important is also, I think we need to monitor whether the incentives able to deliver the outcome that the government wants or not, right? Because every year budget, we do have a lot of proposals.
That's right. And it's not just about announcing the budget, but also so much needs to go into monitoring. Keegan, thank you so much for the very interesting conversation and lots of insights about tax-related strategy for Malaysia's tax lead. Pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
Well, Malaysia's future in tech won't be won by ambition alone. It will be decided by precision and speed. Budget 2026 will be a stress test of how quickly we can align tax policy, talent, and technology to outpace competitors. The choices made now will shape our economy potentially for years to come. That's all we have time for today. We'll see you again next week with more economic analysis and insights. I'm Tehmina Kaoosji signing off for now. Here's to a productive week ahead.
Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.